Welcome to the Boschcast with James Boschman and Denise Young, where we talk about Manitoba real estate and everything else that's on our minds. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy Friday. It's James and Denise here. And it is, the time of this video is March 17th, which is St. Patrick's Day. I realized that I don't own anything green except for my Lacoste sweater. So,
I'm half Irish and I still didn't have anything green to wear other than my camo, and it's like a dark, very dark green.
Yeah. I'll have to invest in some for next year. But hopefully I'll be able
Christmas green, but
hopefully I'll be able to crush a couple green beers later today. So
yeah.
I remember when I was in university, first year university, I lived in dorm, and when I was in dorm, there were these like RAs, which are like students that live in dorm, and they kind of are in charge of each floor or section within the dorm. And these guys were like party animals, like drink every night, every morning, like just crazy, and throw the wildest socials. Their job was to essentially rally everybody up and rile everybody up in the dorm to get them to come out to these socials and different events. And one of them was they would go around it would be like October or November, and they would dress up in all green, like basically St. Patrick's Day stuff. And they would have these giant horns, plastic horns, and they would run up and down the hallways, and they would pound on doors, just boom, 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 at like 5 a.m. And they would blow the horn in the door. And it was practice St. Patty's Day.
Oh yeah.
So like, just an excuse to, get hammered, and then they would run like gauntlets of all the first years. They would get them out and they would have them like do shot skis, where they have the big long ski with the shot glasses on it, and they would pour all the shots, and everybody would have to take shots, and literally taking shots out of boots. Like they would have the boots where you'd have to chug beer out of the boot. And then they would actually do shoeies, where they would pour beers in old shoes, and you'd have to drink them out of people's shoes. And it was terrifying. But needless to say, didn't last very long in university because of that. So I just drank and pissed everything away and wasted all my time, didn't study, just partied. But I just remember that's my fondest memory of St. Patrick's Day. And it wasn't even real St. Patrick's Day.
No.
And then when real St. Patrick's Day came around, it was lackluster.
Oh, really?
There's always like a sport event or something like that. But practice St. Patrick's Day was always more exciting. But yeah, today I've got a couple bangers, couple jokes for you if you want.
Yeah. Okay. What are the jokes?
Okay, so did you know Albert Einstein had a younger brother named Frank? He was a monster. Frank Einstein. Yeah, just head shakers. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other one is, what type of doctor is Dr. Pepper?
What type of doctor is Dr. Pepper?
He's a physician.
Oh my God. Okay then.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, love the dad jokes. Well, thanks everybody for watching another week. The Boschcast. This is episode 9 technically, so we're almost at 10.
Mm-hmm.
And thanks so much for watching and listening every week. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps with the algorithms, the YouTubes, and helps to promote our business and get our content out there. And I think I think next week I'd like to bring on a guest. So start bringing some guests on to fill some time up, and
That'd be awesome.
interview some other business owners and entrepreneurs and like-minded people. So I have an idea for next week, and we'll fire that up, and we'll announce who we're bringing on.
Awesome.
But a market. So market's definitely heating up. And there's some
more listings.
Yeah, see more listings, just more action in general, more activity. As things warm up outside. I know it's frigid today still, but I think that it's kind of like after a while, like our winters are so long here. After a while, people just get fed up and they're like, screw this shit. I'm just gonna wear shorts outside now.
Yeah.
And, buck the system. And that's what I think is happening in the real estate market. I think people they're getting antsy, and they want to buy, they want to sell, they want to, get the jump. And it really kind of feels like the way things were pre-COVID. Like usually in February, end of February, like March, things start ripping. And, that's what kind of feels like to me anyways. But some houses are going into multiple offers. Some houses are getting offer date, like putting offer dates. Listing agents are putting offer dates on the listings again. I'm noticing like a correlation, like the houses that have offer dates, they seem to be in those classic family areas, like the Windsor Parks and the North Kildonans, the East Kildonans, certain parts of Transcona, and of course Westwood and Crestview and those areas. But it seems to be that $300,000 to $400,000 price point. If it's a family home, like a 3-bed, 2-bath bungalow with a full basement, classic 60s, 70s builds, like they seem to be putting multiple offer dates on them, and they seem to be getting a few offers. So that just kind of speaks to the nature of our market right now. Things are heating up. But then you see other houses, over that 450 plus range that are getting, offers as received. A lot of the out of town listings, like the smaller bedroom communities in the small towns, are doing offers as received again, and getting offers that are subject to sale. So we're starting to see the subject to sale offers again, but they're usually subject to the sale of a house in one of these hot markets in Winnipeg, where they're confident if it's priced well, it's going to sell quickly.
Right.
And so, we're going to kind of later in the podcast, we're going to talk about, purchasing a new home when you currently own an existing home. So the subject to sale offers, and because we're seeing them more and more, I've written 3 in the last 2 weeks. And, so it's definitely common again, going back to a normal balanced market, or like a pre-COVID market. That was quite common. We have these domino effects of, subject to the sale of my existing home, and then somebody writes you an offer and it's subject to sale of their existing home, and it's like you're waiting for all the dominoes to fall.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fun. It's exciting. And then, there's some underlying, from a macro perspective, there's some underlying stuff that's happened in the last week. People making a run on the banks in the US. You have Silicon Valley Bank that went tits up, and it sent shockwaves to a lot of similar banks. So these are banks that had a lot of money through large tech corporations and big companies and stuff like that. And but then they themselves as banks, they made super risky investments in in the housing market and stuff like that, and took a lot of risks and where they shouldn't have, which led to their collapse. And it sent shockwaves through the financial markets because I look at it as it's hard for us to relate to big corporations having millions and millions of dollars or billions of dollars with a bank, and then the bank goes under. It's hard for us to understand what that feels like. But if we heard rumblings, like let's say our credit union, like my credit union that I work with, I have all my money and all my investments, not all my investments, but I have a large portion of my portfolio and my savings with my credit union. If I started hearing rumblings that, the credit union was underwater, and, I would be freaking out, and I would probably go and try to pull my money out of the credit union. That's exactly what happened in the States, but to a much larger degree and a much larger scale. And these banks that deal primarily with large corporations and companies, and that sends shockwaves. And now you have, billion-dollar companies pulling all of their money out of the banks, and the banks just have to close their doors. And then you have the Fed in the States that just says, well, we can't let this happen, so we're just going to bail them out.
Right.
And it still sends shockwaves into Canada. And because of that, we've seen our Canada 5-year bond yield go from 3.6% to 2.9%. Because of the financial markets, just, everybody's panicking and freaking out. Now it's highly, highly unlikely that we're going to see, stuff like that happen in Canada. We have much more strict rules when it comes to banking here.
Right.
And I think that, a lot of the major banks and financial institutions, they have backstops in place to protect them. But it's still, everything is market driven. Mm-hmm. And the consumer is the one who has their money in the bank. So if they start to feel panicky and they want to pull that money out, that's not good for the banks. Governments have to protect the banks. They're kind of beholden to the banks. So what we're seeing is the drop in the Canada 5-year bond yield, which, our fixed rates in Canada kind of follow the Canada 5-year bond yield. And so I don't think it's happened yet today, Friday, but likely early next week, we're going to start to see some pretty significant declines in our fixed rates.
Yeah. They went down to, I think, 4.79 this week, but I could see it coming down a little bit more in the next week. Yeah,
maybe like the low fours, which is definitely a lot better than 5% fixed rate or 6% fixed rate. So, but the shockwaves in the financial markets that have occurred, it's really going to be interesting now to see how the central banks deal with that, because they've been very, like the Fed has been super hawkish. We're going to continue to raise rates, until we start to see the inflation numbers come down to where we want to see them. And Bank of Canada has signaled a continuation of the pause. So not raising, not dropping. But, with the Fed bailing out the banks in the States, it goes to show how, beholden we are to the banks here. And the last thing that the Bank of Canada wants is to cause more frustration and upset in the financial markets by, if they increase rates, or if they continue with their pause, it's going to continue the the degradation of the consumer confidence in the banks. And so they don't want to, frustrate things even more. They don't want to piss off the banks even more and piss off consumers anymore and cause more bank runs and cause more people to freak out. So the markets now are actually pricing in that by the next Bank of Canada rate announcement, which is April 12th, that it's very likely that they might drop their overnight rate by 25 basis points, and then another decrease in the overnight rate before the summer. So we'll see if that happens. But regardless, this is all, stimulating, consumers in the housing market even more. When interest rates come down, people get off the fence, they start buying. They're like, well, we should take advantage of this time right now. I even have clients who are on floating variable rate mortgages.
Yeah.
And saying, once the rates come down to a certain number, we're locking in.
Right.
Because they're just tired of
volatile market right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not to say that, people should, but just watch it really closely. And, because it will be really interesting to see what happens. But I think I don't think things are going to continue to increase in terms of rates, but they're either staying the same or they're going to be forced to come down,
right?
Which is going to further stimulate our crazy spring market that we're just seeing the tip of right now.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting in the next week or two what happens, because interest rates coming down even a little bit more could impact multiple offers and
and
see a influx of more buyers that were on the fence. Get in there.
But it could also give confidence to sellers, to put their houses on the market. So we could either see, a bit of a seller's market again, where we have a lot more buyer confidence and more buyers than sellers, depending on how the inventory picks up. Or we could see more confidence from sellers wanting to put their houses on the market, which would match the demand out there. So, but I just think next couple months here is going to be a lot of action in our market, which is good. It's exciting. So I guess we'll see what happens the next couple of weeks here. But yeah, don't rush out and start pulling money out of the bank. That's not.
Here in Canada, we're insured a lot better than the States are. So
yeah, we're not going to be experiencing another 2008 great financial crisis by any means. It's just a couple outliers that had a lot of capital, a lot of investment from these giant corporations that decided to take some real risky moves with their money and, ended up not working out so well. So, but yeah. I forgot to put the ticker up for the last, but
I didn't even notice that. But yeah,
it's story time.
Story time.
Okay, so I got a kind of a funny one, and it has to do with it's called Wild Child Home Inspection, but it has to do with a buyer client. So I had this home buyer client years ago, pre-COVID. She was a military relocation, and she was moving from another province into Manitoba.
Okay.
And single woman, super nice lady, and she wanted to be as close to her work as possible, which was in the St. James area. So like the military base there.
Yeah.
And so we were looking at St. James and the West End. like the Sargent Park part of the West End primarily.
Okay.
She just wanted something easy maintenance, small square footage, nothing crazy, 2 bedrooms kind of thing. And we were out looking her house hunting trip. So the way it works with relocations is they get their green light for the relocation to happen. And then the next part of it is if they're coming from out of province, they have to schedule a house hunting trip. So usually the relocation company will cover flights or, expenses to travel to the city that you want to purchase a home in or want to relocate to. And then, they'll find a realtor and then basically just look at as many houses as they can fit in a couple day period. And the idea is that they have to purchase a house. So we were literally looking at everything. And at the time there was a lot of inventory and, she had a fairly healthy budget. So we were looking at everything under the sun. She was trying to get a feel for the different parts of the West End, different parts of St. James. I think we had looked at about 30 houses in 2 days, about 15 houses a day. So it was an adventure.
Yeah.
And she settled on a nice little bi-level, and it was a 90s built bi-level in Sargent Park.
Oh, nice.
And it's kind of a rarity in that area because most of the houses were on that street were early 1900s stone foundations. This was something that was relatively new. It had a fully finished basement. Yeah, a little 90s built infill house. Yeah. So I remember I booked the showing and the listing agent called me and he confirmed the showing, but then he followed up with a phone call and he said, I just want to warn you that we've had a bit of some issues with showings on this property. He said a seller is a single mom. She has a teenage son who she has to also relocate. The mom also has to relocate for work. So that's why she's selling.
Yeah.
But the son does not want to move. He is like super upset and like completely unruly. And
he's going to
rebel. And basically, he said in the past, basically what happens is like the mom will go to work. The teenage boy will stay at home by himself and he will make as much of a mess as possible in the house. He'll basically destroy the house in anticipation of showings because he wants to sabotage it, right? Doesn't want mom to move away, doesn't want the house to sell. So, kind of feel for the kid because I myself moved around. I can't even count on 2 hands how many times I've moved as a child and how hard that was.
Right.
And so I was like, you know what? I totally understand. Just confirm the showing. If the son is home, I'll preemptively tell my client what's happening so that we can look past any disasters that we walk into. So sure enough, this kid is home. I opened the lockbox. I knocked on the door. Hello, it's the realtor, just here showing the house. And the kid starts yelling, I don't give a F, F you, blah, blah, blah. And he is upstairs and he's cooking food and he left his chicken fingers in the oven for too long. And there's black smoke pouring out of the oven. There's dishes all over, dirty dishes everywhere, clothes everywhere, dirty laundry. Like it was a disaster,
Yeah.
And so I'm like, just look past everything. Like, look at the bones of the house. Look at the layout. Yeah. Just look at the house. And she was really understanding. She kind of felt bad for this kid too. Right. So we're looking around, ends up being the best house. She's like, I want to write an offer. So we write an offer. We negotiated the possession date. We wanted to make sure that it worked for both parties. My client wanted a home inspection, even though it was a 90s built house.
Well, and I think with military, we have to.
Yeah. So military relocations require, most of the time, they require some form of inspection. They pay for it. So the home inspector one of the inspectors that they recommended was an inspector that I used to work really, really closely with, and great guy. And so we set up the inspection, and it was a Saturday morning inspection.
Okay.
So we're there like bright and early, like 8:30 in the morning. And the realtor confirms the home inspection time. He's like, okay, yeah, you guys are good to go for 8:30, but we're going to try to, the mom, the owner of the property, made a real effort to make sure that the son wouldn't be there.
Yeah.
So the mom, he's like, the owner is out of town for the weekend with her boyfriend. The son is staying in the area with the grandparents.
Okay.
And so no one will be home.
Okay.
He said, but if there's an issue, please call me. So I knew that nobody was there, because he said, right?
No one's supposed to be there. Yeah.
No one's supposed to be there. So the course of action with most home inspections is usually we start outside first. So I opened up the house, I opened the door, let the buyer in, let the inspector in. Inspector puts his stuff down like on the main floor. And then he's like, let's start outside. So it's a nice sunny day, summer. We start outside. We spent about an hour or so outside, just looking at everything, explaining everything. And then he says, okay, well, now's the fun part. Let's go check out the bones. Let's go to the basement. So part 1 was outside. Part 2 is we go right into the basement. Now, this is a bi-level house with one entrance, and it's a side door. So there's a little landing, and then you stand in the entrance, and then there's 5 stairs going up or 6 stairs going up and the same going down. So we just right away go right down into the basement. So he's checking all the mechanicals. He's checking the electrical panel. He's checking everything. We're probably down there for 45 minutes,
Okay.
And my client, she's like pretty confident that she's going to move forward with this house. Like, there's a few little things that need to be fixed, but nothing crazy, just signs of a well lived in house and some things that haven't been maintained properly, but she was comfortable with everything. Last step was checking the main floor, plumbing, electrical outlets, appliances, windows, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But before the inspector made his way upstairs, my client is like, can I go upstairs and take some measurements of the bedrooms? I'm like, yeah, sure. Why not? So we hadn't been up there yet at all.
Yeah.
So she goes up there, and I hear her walking around. I'm in the basement with the inspector, and we're having a conversation. And all of a sudden I hear this blood curdling scream, a shriek from my client.
Oh no.
And she's like, oh my God. Oh my God. And I run upstairs, and here she is standing in the doorway of the son's bedroom. And he is passed out naked on the bed. And he's like, she opened the door and scared the bejesus out of this kid. And he's standing there, and the whole room reeks of pot smoke, reeks of weed smoke. There's bongs everywhere. There's like crushed Lucky beer cans everywhere, and he starts freaking out. So now they're like screaming and yelling at each other, and he's swearing at her and everything. So I come up there. I was like, hey, you're not supposed to be here. Yeah. And he was like, this is my house. And he starts arguing and shouting back and forth.
Yeah.
And he was like, get the hell out of my room. And he goes and he slams the door on us. Yeah. And then he starts like throwing stuff in his room and everything. And then I hear him like light up his bong. I could hear the bubbling of the water bongs. Just like, and I'm like, my client is like, what the hell is going on? Right. So I'm like, let's go outside. I tell the inspector, I'm like, Mike, let's go outside. So we're all standing in the yard. I phoned the realtor. I was like, the son is home, and we have been at this home inspection for nearly 2 hours now. And we started outside. Then we went to the basement. My client decided to go upstairs by herself to take some measurements of the bedrooms. And when she opened the son's bedroom door, he was in there, buck naked, beer cans everywhere, bongs everywhere, and they scared each other. And he started freaking out. He's throwing stuff, and he basically kicked us out of his room. And he said, "Oh my God, James, I don't even know what to say." So he phones the mom, can't get a hold of the mom at all, can't even get a hold of the owner of the property, right?
Yeah.
He gets the phone number for the grandparents. This kid was supposed to be staying at grandparents all weekend. What he did was he broke out of grandma and grandpa's house. He went partying. He went partying down the road at one of his buddies' houses, and then decided to go home intoxicated or high or whatever, and just passed out.
Yeah.
And, didn't care about the inspection, and so Mike, the inspector, and I walked back into the property, and we were like, "Listen, out, like, get out. I don't have anywhere to go." I'm like, "Put some freaking clothes on and get out of here. Like, this is a home inspection." And I was like, "Did you not hear us? We've been here for an hour and 45 minutes, like almost 2 hours. Like, the freaking inspector was on the roof of the house. Like, you didn't hear somebody on the roof of the house, like,
no,
he's passed out. Yeah. So,
why couldn't he go back to grandma's house?
Yeah. So he picked up all of his stuff and he did the walk of shame, and, the realtor called me after, and I guess the grandparents were driving around, like, trying to find him, because I told the realtor that the kid had left.
Yeah.
And the grandparents picked up the kid, and he was safe and sound. But, like, what a crazy experience that was. But my client ended up, she satisfied the conditions. Everything was great. Took possession of the house. Everything was spick and span, no issues. But that was a pretty wild experience.
No kidding. Yeah.
So never a dull moment.
No,
especially
always something.
In Winnipeg real estate market. So. But yeah, I just felt so bad. Like, even after, I'm like, I feel so bad for that kid. He's probably traumatized, and mom's out gallivanting with boyfriends probably, and just.
Yeah, and it's a hard age to be forced to move. I remember having to move from Transcona to Anola when I was 15, and I was miserable about that. Right? Like, it was like the worst thing that could happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was born in the Maples in Winnipeg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My parents moved to Rosser, Manitoba.
Oh yeah.
Then from there we moved to Stonewall.
Oh wow.
I went to elementary in Stonewall. Then from Stonewall we moved to Portage. I went to finished off elementary in Portage. Then my parents moved to Oakville, Manitoba.
Right.
So I did middle school, my entire middle school in Oakville, Manitoba. Then the only high schools that were there, it was Eli or Portage.
Uh-huh.
And so was my moved out with my mom. She lived in Portage. I went to Portage High School. So, and then my mom moved around. I moved around with my mom a number of times as well. Right. So I understand how challenging it is to make friends and then have to move and leave your friends and then make new friends again. Like, and I can't remember how I was as a teenager, but I was probably, I wasn't, I don't think I was ripping bongs and crushing beers and, running away from home, but I was definitely. I
talked with my mom a lot about the move.
Yeah. I know it was really hard on me, but here I am, and how I made it this far, I couldn't tell you.
Well, I laugh now because as much as it was the worst thing ever at the time to move to Anola when I was 15, and I did continue to go to school in the city, but now I had to take the bus for an hour in the morning and an hour at night. But then I met Jameis while I lived out in Anola. Yeah. So
well, it's funny, like the butterfly effect of our lives. Like if we look back and, if my parents hadn't moved from Stonewall to Portage, where would I be today?
Right.
Or if I hadn't moved from Portage to Oakville, where would I be today? And it's like, but hindsight's always 2020, right? You have to keep moving forward.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, let's get to our topic this week, which kind of piggybacks off of the first part of the podcast.
Sure.
So, super common question, often a dilemma in the minds of many clients, which is, should I buy, if I own an existing home, and I'm looking to upsize or downsize or move to a different town or city or whatever, how do I do that? Do I sell my house first and then go buy something? Or do I find something first, buy it, and then sell my house? So I figured because we're seeing more subject to sale offers nowadays, it is, important to kind of talk about this. Over the last few years, COVID, the market was so crazy, you wouldn't even dare think about writing an offer with a subject to sale because it would get ripped up right away, right? But now it's a little bit more common, depending on the property, and that's the big thing.
Right.
So like going back to that question, should you buy a new home first and then sell, or should you sell first and then buy? So I always say that this is very specific to your situation.
Yes, it's a hard one to do a generalization on.
Right.
Definitely.
So we want to look at your entire situation, what your goals are, what your motivation is, and then ultimately look at your property and then talk to your bank.
Right.
So there is a process that kind of needs to happen.
I like people to talk to their bank first.
Yeah.
Because I want to know, can they carry whether they want to or not, can they carry two properties if we choose to go that route, right?
Right.
That's a good part of making the decision, is knowing, can we?
Yeah.
Because if you can't, then that really, it limits your options on what you can be doing.
Yeah, what you have to do.
Yeah, you have to sell first then, kind of.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So it depends on, okay, well, how sellable is your house?
Right.
What is the market like where your existing house is located? The house that you want to buy, what's that market like?
Yeah.
Is there a lot of action on the house that you want to buy? Will they even consider a subject to sale offer? And so
how often does a house come up in that area that would fit your needs?
Yeah. So if you had to sell first and then buy, what's the likelihood that something else is going to come up that fits the bill?
Yeah.
I'm dealing with this right now, and with some clients, and they're kind of like, they have their eye on one house. We've written an offer subject to sale.
Yeah.
But if they don't want to take it, then we're still going to list their house, because the motivation is that they need to downsize or they need to get their kids over here. So regardless, it's happening. It's just that
they'll make something work. It's not like, I have clients who are in a similar situation, but what they're looking for is a unicorn. So if we sell their house, they might end up homeless.
Yeah, exactly.
Until that unicorn comes on the market again.
So I always like to say that, usually there's kind of three options, and what'll determine which option is right for you is a mix of the market. It's a mix of what the bank will allow you to do,
right?
And how confident we are, so how much of a risk do you want to take, or do you want to stomach, right? So the first option is to sell first.
Yeah.
This is always, I think, the best option if you can do it, because you can set you can dictate what the possession is going to look like to the future buyer. You
Yeah.
could say, oh, well, this is the price that I need.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the possession that will make us feel comfortable. So, usually it's like, hey, let's put 4 months, let's ask for 4 months possession. We can make it sooner by mutual agreement. That gives us a bit of time to go out and find something.
Right.
That way we're not in a pinch. We don't feel rushed.
Right.
Usually 3 months is plenty of time to go and find something, depending on where they're looking. But
yeah,
this also gives you an upper hand when you are trying to shop for the new house, because it's one less condition that you have to put in the offer.
And you also know how much you have to spend, because now
Yeah.
you know what you got for your house.
Right.
Your numbers are more solid.
Right. So there are some cons with it. The cons could be that, well, what happens if you don't find that unicorn? If you
Right.
you've just sold your house, you got a great price for it, you got the terms that you want, but within that period of time, you still haven't found that house that you want.
You have to find it and possibly bid on it, right? Like,
right. So it could be that, you just sold your home, but you might have to rent something for a little while, or you might have to live with family. And that's where talking to the bank is going to be important, because if your idea is that you want to, keep your existing mortgage rate,
right,
and you just want to port the existing mortgage over to the new property,
puts you on a time limit.
Yeah, could put you in a time limit. Also, if you don't find something, you're going to have to close out your existing mortgage, which could result in some penalties, depending on the lender, and then requalifying based on the new interest rates for the new property.
Right.
So it's a delicate dance that, is very specific to you, your situation, and your property. And we have to come up with a full picture game plan and then a backup plan from there.
Right.
But usually the sell first, then buy is the most, I would say the easiest option, because then you know exactly what you have to work with. The second option is to buy first with a condition of the sale.
Right.
So, we can look at properties. We can do an assessment of your existing property to give you kind of a ballpark range of value, to say, once we find that property, we're ready to hit the ground running, put your house up for sale. There's no dicking around. There's no, oh, well, we don't have it painted yet, or we don't have it cleaned yet, or we don't have it this or that. It's just, you find the house, you write an offer subject to the sale, get your house on the market immediately. Now there's cons with that, because it depends on the market. If it's a super hot or decently hot seller's market, that means there's probably other buyers out there that the listing agent knows about, or the sellers know about, that would likely purchase that property without that condition.
Right.
So do they want to accept an offer like that? First of all, it can also, adding a condition of sale can also hurt your chances if you wanted to further negotiate on things like price, or, if you wanted to include the lawnmower or something like that. Like they're not going to look at your offer as seriously as they would if you didn't have that condition. But again, depends on the property. If it's a higher priced property and you're moving up, and it's been on the market for a little while, if it's offers as received, maybe they are a little bit more receptive.
Right.
A subject to sale offer usually will garner what's called a 48-hour clause, or a time clause. So this is something that is typically pre-written in to the deal, or negotiated during the negotiations by the seller and the listing agent.
I like to pre-write it so that I can choose the time frame that I'm most comfortable with, and make sure it's written in the way I like it written.
And then it shows good faith from the buyers as well.
Yeah.
They understand, and they're makes their offer a little bit more appealing and stronger than, looking at it and you're like, oh my gosh, there's a 60-day condition for the sale, but we don't want to tie our house up for 60 days on a condition. What happens if they can't sell their house? Well, then they can back out, and then we're left 60 days down the road and we have to relist the property and find another buyer. So the point of a time clause or a 48-hour clause is they can accept your offer. So they have a bird in the hand and they can give you the opportunity to try to sell your house, but they will continue to market their property as an active listing. And in the event they get another offer, like a backup offer, that offer, once it's void of conditions, so they can accept another conditional offer, on financing or home inspection. But once those conditions are satisfied, the sellers can then go ahead and give you 48 hours or 72 hours or 24 hours, whatever that time frame is.
Freedom upon time is. That's why I like to write it in, because then I can put a longer time. Whereas I've seen people come back with 6 hours.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and that's, what can you do in 6 hours?
Yeah. So when they do finally accept that backup offer, they can invoke the time clause, which means you now have that amount of time to remove your conditions or walk away from the deal and keep your deposit and move on to another house.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like
not a point of a bidding war at this point. It's just about you have first right, and you either choose to remove your conditions or move on.
Yeah. The other option, the third option, which is the most, I would say, risky option, but I have seen this option probably more so in the last few years than any of the previous options, which is you purchase first with no condition of sale.
Yep.
So you just have a financing condition in your offer, or no condition if you're competing in multiple offer, which is what we were seeing over the last couple of years. And likely what's going to happen is you can either get an approval to carry two mortgages or not.
Right.
And if the bank says you have to sell your existing home, then what they'll do is they'll say, we hereby approve the financing of the new property subject to or conditional upon you having a firm sale on your existing home before you take possession of the new home. So you remove your financing condition. So now it's a clean deal. And then we have to make sure that we're going to get a firm offer. We're going to get a firm sale on your existing house when it gets listed.
Right.
A little bit more risky. So we have to, number one, we got to make sure that we're priced accordingly. We're priced to
sell.
You might
have to be a little bit more flexible on your terms and conditions on your sale then.
Yeah. So we just got to ensure that your house is sellable, that the price is reflective of a quick sale, because you don't want to be in a position where you've just satisfied your condition or you've written a clean offer where the bank is telling you that you have to have a firm sale in your house, and then you can't close on possession.
Right. But if you can carry the two, then you could possibly, if it sat on the market a little longer, you could put a renter in there or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I saw the third option here a lot, and I still see it a lot, where people are in a position where they have an existing home, but they'd like to build something.
Right.
And if it takes, 8, 10, 12 months to build, the builder is going to require some sort of deposit up front. Usually it's 5% or 7% or 10%.
Right.
And not everybody has that in capital that's liquid where they can just write that check to the builder. So they have to do a home equity line of credit to pull that money out of the equity of their existing home. use that towards the deposit so that the builder can start the construction.
Right.
Chances are the purchasers also have a financing condition because the bank still wants to look at the property, and maybe they'll want to do an online appraisal or something. So they would satisfy the condition, even though that condition is conditional upon them selling their house before they take possession.
Yeah.
Once the builder sees that there's a firm sale, they will go ahead and start the construction. And then usually, 3-4 months before possession date of the new home, that's when you put the house on the market. Now, obviously, there's a little bit of risk with that. Again, we got to make sure that the house is going to sell regardless. So if it's
that also gives the sellers a lot more, or your clients a lot more time to get their house ready,
right,
to sell, because they've gotten those, they know about 4 or 5 months before they're actually going to be putting it on the market, that they're going to be selling. Yeah.
So those are the common options that I see.
Sure.
Sell first, then buy first with a condition of sale, or buy first with no condition of sale, and then just try to line everything up accordingly. But it's dependent on, every situation is so different. Definitely you want to work with professionals, realtors who know what they're doing, know how to structure these types of deals, and also come up with a game plan, talk to your bank, see what can be done. So I think that's it for that.
Right on. Yeah.
So moving on, give some flowers, business of the week, to businesses and people that we admire. I'll let you go first, Denise.
Sure. I'm going to shout out Nathan Weltman. He's a lawyer that helps a lot of my clients and myself. And he helped me do some updates on my, we have our what it costs for a buyer, what it costs for a seller to buy or sell. Help me do some updates on that with some, fees and costs that we don't always see as the realtor. So did an update to that this past week, and recently helped me drop my will. And as I reach 50 years old, I realized how I'm not quite there yet, but getting close, and realize, that even though we don't have children, we probably should have a plan, and he helped me with that. And my other one is Ramallah Cafe, which is just below our office on Munroe. And I ordered from there for the first time, and it was very tasty. Brought some lunch over to hang when I was hanging out with my stepmom the other day while my dad went out for lunch. And she's not the greatest eater. Like, she eats very little, and she devoured it.
Oh, yeah. It sure smells good over there.
Yeah, well, and I have to say, I made the mistake of picking something with so much garlic, and I still had clients after, and it was just garlic. It was very delicious.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I haven't tried Ramallah Cafe, but I've been meaning to, because I love Middle Eastern food.
Yeah, it was very tasty.
Like shawarmas and donairs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Cool. So my picks are, first one is a place that I have driven by for a long time, but I've actually never been in until very recently. And it's Vic's Market. So they used to have a little fruit market on Pembina Highway, and then they opened up a new grocery store, pretty large facility actually. So it's at 1049 Pembina. It's a family-owned grocery store. They've owned it forever and ever and ever. But it's like fresh produce and all local products. They have butcher in there, like a meat department. It's all local stuff, and some of the freshest produce that I've ever seen.
Oh, really?
And when I walked in, first thing that I saw was a giant Spice World rack.
Oh, really?
And so I went to town and bought like a whole bunch of Spice World seasonings. Spent too much money, but yeah, I walked around and looked at everything, and definitely going to be going back there.
Yeah.
Especially since Crampton's is closed.
Oh.
So this is a great alternative. They have a lot of like local produce, local farm stuff, and just great products all around. So definitely recommend checking it out. And then just our local insurance company, One Insurance, East St. Paul. So
Yeah.
they're 3014 Henderson Highway, close to our house. We've dealt with them for years with our own home insurance and car insurance and everything else insurance. They're super great. They're super knowledgeable, and it kind of feels like a small town. Well, it is a small town insurance agency, but they really make you feel at home there, and super friendly, super nice. So if anybody's looking for insurance, they're a great option. And very knowledgeable, very friendly. So, but yeah, those are my picks.
Awesome.
So I guess that concludes our journey for today, and look forward to next week and seeing what happens in the market. And if anybody out there has any real estate related questions or needs help with the real estate needs or goals, feel free to reach out. We're always happy to help, and look forward to seeing you guys again next week.
Sounds good.
Peace out.
Bye.
See you later, guys.